I'm Emma Myers, and welcome to Nevermore.
Yeah, they call me trouble. They don't know the hype. I'm a misguided little rebel. Look at how she acts. Always flying down the freeway, pedal to the max. Come on, tell me one more time to relax.
We're in the link right now, but this is kind of like the new quad. At the end of the last season, Enid finally wolfs out, gets her powers going, then transitioning into this season, she's becoming more sure of herself. Behind me is a giant statue of a werewolf. It's not Enid, although I wish it was. I think this statue is a good reminder for her that she is now fully herself. Howdy, Ruby! Stepping onto a set like this helps you believe it more. Doing fantasy and trying to deliver the lines realistically is always hard, but being obnoxious and talking about werewolf things and, hooded figures and crows attacking us and, mysteries isn't so far-fetched when you're on a set like this. Jenna and I have been talking about every single little gargoyle and little monster statue and which one we would be and what we think their backstories are. Jenna would be that one, that pig guy. I said, where is he? I like the snake-looking thing. I don't know why. There's a connection somehow. You don't notice it all at first, but when you spend more time on these sets, you start to notice the smaller details.
Our huge new feature window ties into one of our big new locations, which is Charleville Castle. So we play the interiors of some of Nevermore inside. You have the huge window in the hallway there, so we've replicated it here so that you can seamlessly move between this set and that location, and you feel like it's one big cohesive space. We've now got the little Nevermore shields in stained glass either side of the front door there as well. And all the gargoyles, we had a huge selection of gargoyle designs. They all reflect different characters within the school and different creatures that inhabit the world. But again, all hand sculpted and driven, which is what I love about it. It gives it a heart as well, which I think is important. And then we have another new feature, which is the Telltale Cafe, which is the only place the students are allowed to go now as they're banned from going to Jericho. So we had to give ourselves a nice little franchise coffee shop that's very much the Nevermore world, but you can certainly get your own little sachet of OB positive blood if you're in the vampire world. And then to give us some connection back to the real world, and I always try to make sets feel real and feel like they actually are real places rather than film sets. So we designed the whole set so it actually has a view out into the real world and real hills that try and give you that feeling of Vermont. So this is very much a protected view. We've got a lovely cherry picker there because we're extending the set out. So we have an exterior now to come into, which we'll play later on in the season. A lot of time went into selecting the right spot to build the set in the first place to give us that view out. We don't rely on blue screens or anything like that. It's all in camera, which is what we try and do all the time on this show. Tim's brilliant, he's very collaborative. When I just finished doing Beetlejuice with Tim, I was able to get in with him quite early on and start discussing what he had in mind, trying to nail down where we wanted to go with the season and the different ideas we wanted to try and get into the season and the different moods we wanted to get. So I would normally do some thumbnails, he would then tell me what was wrong with those thumbnails, we then go back, he would give me his little doodles. His doodles are fantastic because they say very little, but they give you all the information you need. They're very sort of descriptive in a few lines. The original Addams Family cartoons that Chad Adams did are very sparse like that, so they're great sort of visual cues for me. And in fact, some of the sets, like we did Wednesday's bedroom this season, which is sort of straight out of the Chaz Adams cartoons, and it's very sparse and very minimal. It has like a chair and a desk. That's the essence of what we try to get to with the show. Wednesday's bedroom in her dorm room is obviously the one that everyone loved from season 1 and was my favorite. It was the first one as it did in season 1, and it was the one that stuck, and it's the one that really stood out. Some of the sets are here. So this is the secret lab, which is sort of underneath, which is a big script point in the show. This is the entrance gates that we built on location. There's a huge sort of old seminary in the background that we designed the whole set to take these gates. It was all built in situ with a real road and everything else, which was a big undertaking for us. This is the Iago Tower. We sort of glimpsed it in season 1. It's one of the 3 clock towers, and a few people commented to me why it was broken and smashed. And actually in this season we find out why it's broken and smashed.
Enid? Where are we?
I think we're near Iago Tower.
It's one of our biggest sets, and we actually had to physically dig out this part of the stage to get the height in, and it had to solve a lot of things in our plot lines, and I've literally only got the last few pieces of that now, so I'm having to sort of redesign some of this to fit in with some of the things it has to do in the last episode. It's such an architecturally difficult thing to build. It's all steel, it's all real, it all has to be its own self-supporting structure. Everything is the real deal in it, and it looks at when you're in there, you feel like you're in the incredible Nevermore collapsed Iago Tower. Hi AD, welcome to Morticia's Cottage. We set the bar quite high last season with fireplaces, so it was definitely something we knew we had to pay attention to in the show. We go through a lot of different designs for them. This one particularly was difficult to get hold of because we were trying to design something that could play for the Addams Family world, but also for the Thornhill world. So we had to change this through the show. So it starts off when it's all done in light oak and everything else. Then it goes dark when it becomes the Addams Family's sort of world. When we first come in, Marilyn's been living here, and the environment is very pink and very fluffy and is full of chintz and doilies and everything else.
Who decorated this place?
A homicidal maniac.
And the inspiration when we read that, certainly when I read it, I'd only not that long ago seen a picture of the Addams Family house in the TV show in the 1960s, which was actually completely full of pinks and pale greens and everything else, and it was only black and white when it went to screen. So we took that idea into here and we did exactly the same thing. So actually we did exactly the same wallpaper, which was designed by Eugene Grasset in an Art Nouveau style, and we changed the colorways. So we started off with the pinks and the greens, and then we went to the blacks and the reds, so that it almost changed its color overnight. And then the idea is that all the props have been brought in by Lurch. No Addams Family environment would be complete without having the taxidermy bear, but we didn't really want to have a real one. It didn't feel right to have a poor stuffed bear on our set for the whole time. So actually we spent a lot of time and effort recreating a fake one. So this bear you see is actually completely fake, but it definitely fits the bill for the Addams Family. We gave Morticia the deep rose and the scarlet color to match with the black. So she doesn't have a direct contrast with Wednesday, so she's more in her own world. And to keep that theme running with the gardener's cottage, I then picked up on the idea of the rambling roses and rose petals and red roses, which meant it could stay constant between the different sets. So in all the windows you'll see there's an element of stained glass roses. So as you see in the kitchen, we have the same with the roses running through there, and then on the fireplace you'll see you have the same idea of the rambling roses going through, and even on the walls there's roses in the vines and everything else. We slightly went to town on this one. This was definitely the more macabre of our fireplaces, which I wasn't 100% sure about to begin with, but the design was so strong that we rolled with it with this sort of spectral figure in the middle, which is all hand sculpted, and actually it's real fabric underneath all that and was actually hand draped by one of our sculptresses. It's the most beautiful thing I think I've seen on this set. How do you make a kitchen fit for the Addams Family, which still actually has to exist in the 21st century? So there's some modern appliances hidden amongst it all. This isn't a period set, it is a contemporary set. So theoretically it's actually a modern fridge, but it still has the right vibes. This is actually one of the hardest bits to get right because it kept feeling too modern, and yet it has to be modern. In the period set, it is a contemporary set. So theoretically it's actually a modern fridge, but it still has the right vibes. This is actually one of the hardest bits to get right because it kept feeling too modern, and yet it has to be modern. No Addams Family house would be complete without a conservatory of some description, and so we had to have this tacked onto the back of the gardener's cottage. And then we brought in a few of the nice elements, the ubiquitous fan chair, which has to be here no matter what. It's become synonymous with Morticia, so you have to have it. Morticia's lovely little carnivorous plant, which she's been nursing.
My mother is a carnivorous plant aficionado. I assume I get my red thumb from her.
The slightly dubious bird cage, which occasionally has a bird in it, depending on how we feel. But the whole point of this set was to sort of provide this very bright green pop that is visible through the very dark and gloomy reds and blacks of the other set, and gives us a little bit of respite in the colour scheme. So this is Dr. Orloff's biology classroom. We wanted to dig into the world of the underbelly of Nevermore and the creatures that inhabits it. And so we spent a lot of time getting into the design of sort of the backstory of these creatures. So these little fellas, somewhere between a wood nymph and a cave troll, I guess, but we had to give this idea that Orloff studies the more peculiar creatures. Largely inspired actually when I went to the Natural History Museum in Dublin and saw creatures not 100 miles away from this. The whole space I think is generally designed to give it that slightly icky feel. His desk is made out of a mortuary slab, which we don't quite know where it came from, and we probably don't want to know where it came from. And then every time we come in here, we have a different set of drawings on the board and a different set of lessons that he's teaching, presumably done by an assistant because he hasn't actually got any arms. We've also got custom milt lamps in here, which actually were from a Eastern European operating theatre that I saw a bit of reference, and I turned them into these sort of batwing lamps. And we've obviously got all the Nevermore detailing throughout. So much so that we even have all the original sort of pieces, and we have functioning Bunsen burners and functioning taps, and everything is designed to work and feel like a real classroom, even if it is a little bit more extraordinary than the normal one.
You seem to attract murderers like most people catch cold.
It's a gift.
Here we are in what is now Principal Dort's office, previously Principal Weems's office. On season 1, we were actually in a real life building, and this was a real location. We've now rebuilt it faithfully in Dublin in our new studio home. It was a bit of a challenge because obviously it was a very elaborate location we moved into, so we had to copy it in every intricate detail because people would notice it. One of our biggest problems here was the very prominent Gorgon fireplace, which was hand sculpted before, and I was slightly alarmed at the notion we were going to have to try and recreate it. But after a lot of phoning and a lot of conversations with people and contacts and everything else, we managed to find out that the actual original face did still exist. So mercifully, we have the exact same fireplace back.
I haven't laid eyes on this in over 20 years.
One of Dort's mandates is definitely it's a new beginning for Nevermore Academy. Steve Buscemi has brought an amazing energy to the role, and we've tried to give it a beginning to build that character on. Obviously, there's not much space in here to hide, so we had to spend a lot of time finding just the right desk for him, just the right chair for him, giving them those key objects to sort of ground the character while keeping the set the same. It's a tricky thing to do from my point of view. Some of the designer pieces were very specifically chosen, but then we had to bring other things into it, like his love of golf and his sort of slightly more Poe-centric, I would say. You know, Edgar Allan Poe was theoretically the founder of Nevermore, and he's very much into restoring Nevermore back to what it was in days gone by. So he's now has a portrait of Poe that he refers to. I think he slightly copies his hairstyle on Poe.
Use your gift and get Morticia Addams and her beloved mother on our side.
So there's a lot of those little details in here while still keeping the same vibe.
Would you like a sticker?
Only if you have one that says do not resuscitate.
We're using some actual secret passages hidden behind some real library doors, which I thought was particularly good. I thought it was the best thing I found on this, is real stuff to use. We don't even have to make it up these times. None of us really knew where season 1 would go. We'd invested a lot of time and effort into it. When we started it, we didn't know where we'd end up at the end of season 1. But I think from my point of view and from Tim's, we were very keen that it didn't lose any of that initial momentum and the initial aesthetic that we'd set up. You know, I've always said I wanted to keep things very human, and Tim was very much the same. We wanted to keep it a real place that is not beyond the realms of what could potentially exist somewhere. That's at the heart of a lot of what Tim does, is that human quality to it all, even though it is fantastical.
The 4 main cliques are fangs, furs, stoners, and scales.
So here we are coming into Caliban Hall, which is the new sort of area of Nevermore. It gives us a chance to dig into the architecture a bit more and explore the world a bit more. So this is architecturally following some of the rules set down by Charleville Castle. So it means we can transition from there to here and keep it all in continuity and make it all feel cohesive again, which is what I'm trying to achieve with this set. Takes us neatly into Pugsley's dormitory.
Oh, Caliban Hall. My old stomping ground.
This is the first time we see another dorm other than Wednesdays, which was interesting because we'd made Wednesdays such a special place. We had to try and do the same trick again. We went down the same avenue, so we pulled in different elements from Nevermore. So we have different types of windows, different elements, and all of which tied together with these bunk beds, which were designed to feel a little bit like a treehouse. Some nice details of the fireplace. Being Caliban Hall, we couldn't really have somewhere without Caliban, so the sculpture represents Caliban in his cave, with a quote, "Be not afeard," from The Tempest. We've got Pugsy's little area down here with his Addams Family spiderweb duvet and some of his interesting props like the hand grenade and various sorts of gas masks. And manacles. No small boy should be without these things in Nevermore. Eugene's area is over here. He's got his own custom duvet that his mum's made for him with the bees and all his insects and all his terrariums, which normally have a selection of real insects in. And then every little bed is meant to have its own little special detail, whether it's the round window, whether it's the stained glass. It's all supposed to be little special places for them to live.
Perfect for late night munchies.
They're pets, not snacks.
And also there's some interesting things. We wanted to make the place feel like it was that eclectic world of architecture, so nothing is, it's evolved, it's grown, so you've got different bricks and different walls and different arches all sort of intersecting as if it's been carved up and rebuilt over the years to give it a sense of history and past. And the story with Wednesday's dorm was always that Enid was sort of on her own and had ended up top of the building in her own dorm. She was almost an outcast of outcasts on herself, and Wednesday was meant to be the interloper, and that's why they ended up splitting the room in half.
What the hell did you do to my room? Dividing our room equally.
The reality is most of the students sort of share these dorms in smaller groups like this, and they sit around the fire and they read stories and that sort of stuff, and it's a safe environment. The line on this show is that even though these are werewolves and gorgons and people with special powers, they're actually normal, non-threatening, they're misunderstood, and they are, this is a safe environment for them to come and be nurtured.